But to your point, there are people watching at home who might miss the part where you say, let's lower the temperature, and there are mentally unstable people who are attempting to kill political candidates, attempting to kill Donald Trump, and they are still hearing this White House refer to him as a threat. Is there no concern that people are taking that literally?
We're using examples. We're not just saying that just to say it. January 6th, Peter. January 6th. Wait, January 6th. How many times do we have to? January 6th, 2021. That is a fact. What was reported that happened on that day by some of your colleagues. I mean, and we have at the same time denounced political violence over and over, political rhetoric over and over again, over and over again.
Why is she so defensive about her words regarding Donald Trump? Because as Doocy said, they keep referring to him as a threat. They're like instigating violence against a former president, and all they point to is January 6th, an event that Donald Trump did not start, nor did he condone it. He talked about a peaceful protest, but we have officials in the White House like Karine Jean-Pierre who points to this chaos and says that the violent rhetoric against Trump is warranted. This is only further proven by the statement released on Donald Trump's website recently. It lists out the language used against the former president for years. Vice President Kamala Harris has repeatedly called him as a threat to democracy and fundamental freedoms. She did it as recently as their ABC News debate, guys, going as far as to call him a dictator. President Joe Biden has also egged on supporters to target Trump. He said that the former president should be put in a bullseye. His words, not mine. He also echoes the statements of Kamala Harris in calling him a threat to our nation. And it's not just violence against Donald Trump. They've also spewed hate toward Donald Trump supporters. In a post on X, the president literally posted, "Trump and MAGA Republicans are a threat to the very soul of this country." And guys, before we get started, just want to say thank you for being here. Thank you for clicking the like button and subscribing to the channel. Let's get started.
So I come out of my house this morning. I just moved here 2 weeks ago today. Trump supporter. Come out my house. I have dents all over my car. Scratches. A cracked windshield and a big dent in that fender. I know nobody in this town. So apparently they are not Trump supporters.
What's alarming here is that they're not toning down this language. Even with all of these things that are happening right now, the same could be said for mainstream liberal media. I mean, look at this piece from the Cincinnati Enquirer. It says that Donald Trump brings a lot of this stuff on himself. New York Magazine, Donald Trump is a threat to democracy and saying so is not incitement. A day after Donald Trump's second assassination attempt, USA Today makes their top headline as Hope in America. Now, I can go on and on about these reports that continue to downplay the threat to this man's life. But surprisingly, not everybody's on the same boat. In fact, I know that he's a polarizing figure, but Chris Cuomo is now taking a stand. In fact, he actually talked to Trump after the second assassination attempt. In fact, he made an effort to get in touch with him, and this is how it played out.
That's why I reached out to Trump. I wanted to just say, listen, I'm really sorry that this is going on and it's being dealt with this way. Not because I'm in favor of his politics or what he says. I criticize him all the time. That's my job, and he deserves it. But he doesn't deserve this. A guy pointing an AK-47 at him while he's playing golf? And we take solace in the fact that the guy didn't get any rounds off. That does not work for me. If I had been through what that guy's been through in the last 2 months, you would not know where I am. You would never see me on TV again. No way I would do that. I don't know how he does it. He's got kids, they're adults, but he's got grandkids. He's got a wife. People giving crap to Melania Trump, worrying about whether or not there was a plot around his husband. How could she not? I don't think she's right, but I totally get why she feels that way, and people mock her. And then her husband has a guy pointed with an AK-47. Where are those people apologizing? That's what it's time for. I should not have come at you, Melania Trump, for suggesting that maybe there was something more afoot. I get your paranoia. I get your feelings. You have a right to that. There's nothing wrong with saying that, with being a basic, decent human being. It has gotten too out of control, too far from where we need to be and how we need to be. And I don't know what to do about it. I don't know. So this is the last thing. This was the best I could do.
And it's refreshing to see a journalist who doesn't feed into the hate, right? Yes, we can disagree and not like each other, but there's a limit. We never resort to violence. This should be about what's best for our country and its people. But now you might be thinking, the White House never commented on Melania Trump. What is Cuomo talking about here? He was putting Don Lemon on full blast. Lemon's tilted heavily to the left after CNN fired his butt. Granted, Cuomo was also removed from the network, but he's never gone as far as this.
The attempt to end my husband's life was a horrible, distressing experience. Now, the silence around it feels heavy. I can't help but wonder, why didn't law enforcement officials arrest the shooter before the speech? There is definitely more to this story, and we need to uncover the truth.
Did you see his reaction? Rolling his eyes as if Melania Trump was spouting off a stupid conspiracy theory? It was so stupid that a firefighter died, Don. And this is the blatant disrespect that they have for Donald Trump. That even with him actually being shot at and almost killed doesn't make a difference. And as you heard, Peter Doocy asked Karine Jean-Pierre the same thing. When will all of this violent rhetoric against a political rival end? Because it's already happened twice. And I believe Cuomo hit a nerve here because he's calling out mainstream media.
I am ashamed of how we are responding and not responding to the threats on him. And I feel for his family. And I know you can roll your eyes and say, oh yeah, he asked for it. Listen, that's your choice. And I think it's a wrong choice. Okay. We got to get out of the judgment business unless it's judging ourselves. And you got to start rewarding things that are better. And I got to tell you, I don't know how he stays in the race. I don't know how he got up after being shot in the head. And you people who try to mitigate that, you need to check yourself. He gets up, pumping his fist, stays in the race, barely even talks about it.
Do any of you guys agree with him? And if so, would it be right for these left-wing liberal media outlets to get in touch with Donald Trump and apologize? So I worked in the IT field for years, and luckily I happen to work for a company where we do business with a lot of different vendors. And one of these vendors used to take us out to lunch on a very regular basis. Let's just say like maybe once a month, once every 2 months. But when I say they would take us out to lunch, they would take us out to lunch. I'm talking about they would take us to some of these really fancy restaurants that I would only hear about or I drive past them. But they were very expensive places. And I'll be honest with you guys, I just wasn't in a position where I was willing to pay that kind of money for food. They're very expensive. I'll just put it that way. Anyway, so one day we go to lunch and right around, it was a late lunch. So right around, I don't know, like 1:30, 2 o'clock, we're leaving and we're waiting for the car to be pulled up because they have mandatory valet. So anyway, while we're waiting for our car to get pulled up, I'm staring at this beautiful black Ferrari 458 and I'm like, wow, this thing is crazy. I don't even get to see those kind of cars often. I don't know if it's just me being a car guy, but I just wonder sometimes, like, how do people afford these things? So after the valet pulls the car up, the owner starts walking towards it and I just happen to say, hey man, that's a sharp car. So the owner turns around and says to me, thanks, I appreciate it. So then I say to him, since he seemed friendly, I was like, hey, is that your first Ferrari? So he turns around and he says, oh no, I have 6 more, but this is probably one of my favorite ones. I said 6 more? That response sparked a 2-minute conversation that I had with this guy. And let me tell you, what he shared with me in that brief 2-minute conversation completely changed my life. And it's life-changing conversations and lessons like this that I decided to share right inside of our Liberty Pursuit network. And to be honest with you, it really wasn't even so much the car that he was driving. It just made me think to myself, like, how does this guy just have the freedom to be able to live his life the way he did? Nice car, hanging out at a fancy restaurant in the middle of the afternoon. It really made me wonder, how do you do that? Anyway, when I was living paycheck to paycheck, I wish that I knew people like this that would kind of like let me know the inside scoop. So anyway, if you want to join like-minded people just like us, join us over in the Liberty Pursuit Network. I left a link for you guys in the description down below this video.
And just last year, the FBI was tipped off again. The Wall Street Journal tells us that Ruth acted so erratically while in Ukraine, other Americans reported him. This included a woman who said his threats of violence worried her so much that she spent an hour with a Customs and Border Protection officer and filed a report with the FBI and Interpol. The woman said that he talked about wanting to kill Putin and Kim Jong-un, and that he mentioned Trump and Biden, but she couldn't remember if there were specific threats. Let's discuss this with Rich Staropoli, former Secret Service agent. Rich, did the feds drop the ball here?
Absolutely, they dropped the ball once again. And this is the reason why local law enforcement for years has a tremendous distrust and, quite frankly, hates the FBI. What did they do here? They went out, they interviewed this guy, they closed the case, they put it on a shelf. How about calling the Secret Service? How about notifying local law enforcement for some follow-up? Yet, wasn't done. You know, this is another blatant case where the FBI is supposed to be sharing information, but wasn't. Unfortunately, because of the incidents, the last two Trump incidents, now the Secret Service is in the same position as the FBI. The level of distrust and hatred by local law enforcement for the Secret Service has compounded the problem and has made it exponentially more difficult for the Secret Service to do their job.
Republican vice presidential candidate J.D. Vance responded to the ABC Newsblower news and said it could be a national scandal if it's proven true.
What is your reaction to ABC News whistleblower affidavit saying Kamala got a leg up in the debate? And are you concerned about your own debate coming up that CBS will not leak anything to Walls?
You know, on my own debate, I mean, the attitude that I take and I know President Trump takes is we should go anywhere, we should talk to everybody, and if that means that there's going to be a slightly biased debate, I don't care. That's the price of doing business. I have heard the reports of the ABC whistleblower. I haven't seen anything about it myself. My attitude is, of course, if it happened, it's disgraceful and should be a national scandal, but it's one of those things where I'd like to see a little bit more information come in before I actually develop an opinion.
So at this point, guys, we need one or two staff members from ABC to also come out and be brave enough to echo what this person's claiming just to prove that this is not a conspiracy. Because seriously, guys, I read the affidavit for you, and what it says, the claims that it makes about the debate, preparation process, and ABC News involvement, it would make your skin crawl from disgust. So the first one is the most obvious, that Kamala Harris was given access to sample or similar questions before the debate. Now, a lot of people have commented how well rehearsed her answers were to the questions. So getting these sample questions would definitely have given her an advantage over Donald Trump by allowing her to better prepare for the specific topics that were going to be raised. But even worse than being given the questions is the claim that Kamala Harris's campaign also actively controlled the kind of questions that were going to be asked. For one, the affidavit claimed that they actively blocked ABC News from questioning Joe Biden's health. True enough, I mean, we didn't hear a peep about it, even though it's something that has been debated throughout the election. It's why they had to switch in Harris last minute, right? With that being said, I totally get it if Harris's team ensured that this line of questioning was off limits. But it wasn't just that, though. The affidavit also claims that the Harris campaign influenced ABC News to avoid probing into allegations against Harris's brother-in-law, who has also been accused of embezzling billions of dollars in taxpayer money. So yeah, for real, guys. It's also mentioned that ABC staff members were fearful of retribution from Trump, meaning they could have felt pressure to comply with the Harris campaign's request to avoid conflict. Now, hold on to your hats, guys, because this next part is where it really gets even more hair-raising. So the whistleblower claims to have secret recordings that prove the Harris campaign pressured moderators to fact-check Donald Trump during the debate. Needless to say, if these recordings exist, they could offer evidence to support these claims, not to mention completely blow up the election in a very significant way. Can somebody say election interference? Because this affidavit really took down the whole debate hard. It said that ABC News was given instructions about which questions to steer clear of during the debate, meaning the Harris campaign had significant influence over the content and the flow of the event. And like what we saw with the 3-on-1 against Donald Trump, this included a demand for live fact-checking of Trump, while Harris herself faced no scrutiny, even when she made statements that were factually questionable. Now, let me tell you guys, things are really going to start happening real fast out here because the whistleblower has reportedly signed the affidavit in New York and also sent a copy to Speaker Mike Johnson, meaning it is now in the hands of political leadership already. So we could see a House investigation into the matter pretty soon. Because seriously, guys, even without this affidavit, people have some serious questions about the Trump-Harris debate.
He's not the sitting president. If he was, we would have had this entire golf course around it. The Secret Service did exactly what they should have done.
The agency has added personnel to Mr. Trump's protective detail since the Butler shooting, and they're also including more bulletproof glass at certain outdoor events. Lawmakers in both parties praising the Secret Service for its quick response while questioning whether more should be done.
We need to be taking a serious look at whether we are allocating resources correctly. Do we need more Secret Service agents?
The idea that there has been 2 attempts and they have been able to get close enough to the former president is deeply disturbing. I'm concerned that Donald Trump is actually not saying.
Trump himself has commented on the incident. Posting on Truth Social, the former president called out the Harris-Biden administration as well as those in the left. He says that the rhetoric, lies, as exemplified by false statements made by comrade Kamala Harris during the rigged and highly partisan ABC debate and all the ridiculous lawsuits specifically designed to inflict damage on Joe's, then Kamala's, political opponent, me, has taken politics in our country to a whole new level of hatred, abuse, and distrust. Because of this communist left rhetoric, the bullets are flying, and it will only get worse, allowing millions of people from places unknown to invade and take over our country in an unpardonable sin. But is he correct in saying that the left is lying and pushing for a violent rhetoric? Wow, this guy's as deranged, if not worse, than his dad. Now, his social media is being cleaned out overnight. From Facebook to X, this guy's online footprint is being removed from public access. Although some screenshots were saved, which says a whole lot about his point of view. In a tweet from 2020, Ruth admitted to voting for Donald Trump in 2016. But after a few years under the former president, he says that he was greatly disappointed. And he ended it by saying that he'll be glad when Donald Trump is gone. Now, this could mean 2 totally different things, but it's apparent that he meant it in a specific way here. This is only further proven by the fact that his history is riddled with felony convictions.
I'm looking for revolutionaries. Whatever people want to take this whole system down.
A 58-year-old is on the campus at Harvard University in 2022 trying to recruit volunteers to fight in Ukraine. Now a profile is emerging of a man obsessed with firearms and the war in Ukraine. He has a record 74 arrests for firearms, explosives, and other offenses. In 2002, he fled cops after he was pulled over for driving without a license and barricaded himself in his office for 3 hours with a machine gun in his hometown of Greensboro, North Carolina.
Why wasn't the perimeter of that golf course swept? Why did agents not find a guy who was there for 12 hours before he started pointing a rifle at the former president of the United States? I mean, clearly, we've got some issues here with the Secret Service, and I think it begins at the top.
Okay, 2 things here. Here's the acting Secret Service Director, Ronald Rowe. Just yesterday, he was asked a very specific question that you just described there. Watch here.
How many times did your agents go around the perimeter and scope out the golf course during the 12 hours that this guy was holed up in the shrubbery?
So this was an off-the-record movement. It wasn't a site that was on his scheduled, it wasn't part of his schedule. So there was no posting up of it because he wasn't supposed to have gone there in the first place.
What he means to say is 0. But the answer there is 0 times. They didn't do a protective sweep. And when he says that it was off the record, it just means it wasn't publicly available.
And one of these reports, I just want to read this for our audience, ask you a very specific question. The resulting findings are highly damaging to the credibility of the Secret Service and DHS, Department of Homeland Security. They reveal a compounding pattern of negligence, sloppiness, and gross incompetence that goes back years, all of which culminated in an assassination attempt that came inches from succeeding. That's referring to Butler 2 months ago. What do you mean it goes back years? Define that for our audience here.
What whistleblowers have told me, Bill, is that over a series of years, Secret Service leadership has steadily reduced the number of agents available in the field. They are now having to rely more on Homeland Security agents who are not trained. One of the whistleblower revelations is that most of the agents in Butler that day in July were not Secret Service, and they weren't trained. They had never done protective work before. Their only training was a webinar, a Zoom call.
Now, Cuomo has said that this isn't an endorsement. He is in no way a Trump supporter, but he believes that we can all do better, and he expects mainstream media to do the same. However, that's not probable, especially when you have people like Hillary Clinton who's calling for conservatives to be put in prison for even supporting Trump. I was surprised myself, so I went ahead and covered this in a previous live stream that you guys need to watch right after this one. Just click on my channel, click on the lives and check that video out next. But as always, thank you guys for hitting the like button. Thank you for subscribing to the channel, and I'll see you guys on the next one.